Now we're going to hear about the idea of pilots and exploring community impact and building a base of engaged citizens to support system change. To do that, we have some folks from across the globe, see we getting international, y'all, to share some work happening in India that could inspire and inform the work we do here in the US. Neil Howard is a faculty member of the University of Bath focused on international development policy, basic income, and cash transfers. Most of it is in collaboration with civil society and UN agencies. In particular, in West Africa and South Asia, he currently leads two large cash transfer / basic income trials in South Asia. Saraf Davala is chair of the Basic Income Earth Network and coordinator of the India Network for Basic Income and research director of the Work Free Basic Income Pilot project in Hyderabad, India. Welcome.
Hi, folks.
Hi everyone.
I'm not very good at making slides, but you can probably get where I'm going with this one, right? It's extremely nerve-wracking coming up here at the end of a morning in which everybody has been totally and utterly kick-ass. But that ties into what I wanted to say with this slide, what we wanted to say with this slide, which basically like hat tip. I mean, you can tell we are from overseas, quite far away, and we are both heavily involved with the income movements where we are from and internationally. And as was the case last year, the first time I'd come to what you folks put on, I'm just totally blown away. Like, you guys are so far ahead in terms of organization, inclusivity, the way that you present what you present, the way you curate what you do. I mean, chapeau, basically. And thank you very much for having us here for a few minutes at the end of the morning. Do you want to just say a bit about our background?
Four pilots. The first one we did in 2011 and 13 was Madhya Pradesh pilot, which was in rural areas. We had 9 villages and 6,000 people were given cash. And that pilot was initiated by a women's trade union called Self-Employed Women's Association. And we will talk about the plus part there. So it was a union work, and then union said that let's also try cash transfers. And then the second pilot is the Work Free, which is still going on. It's an urban area working with urban waste collectors who are mostly belong to the lower castes in India, you know, the caste system in India. So we had 1,500 individuals and in 5 urban neighborhoods. Then the third pilot is a spillover of the same model as Work Free. We gave cash for a period of 1 year to 10 transgender persons in Hyderabad. That was for 1 year, whereas Work Free project for 18 months, even in the Madhya Pradesh was also 18 months. If we have time, I can give you a logic why 18 months and why not 12. And the fourth project is what Neil will talk about in Bangladesh.
Design-wise, all 4 of these pilots essentially, and the reason we're here right now, have had central elements that are the same across design. And the most important, and what we'll talk about in this sort of sneak preview, we're going to be talking after lunch at greater length, is this combination of cash and community organizing. The uniting theme, if you like, or the uniting concept being unconditionality. And our sort of starting premise, along the lines of what the speakers here just said, is that, you know, obviously under capitalism, cash matters. If you don't have it, you die. But cash is not enough. And therefore, what can be added to cash to increase the power of cash and fundamentally to grow the power of people who are participating. And so the project that I was involved in leading in Bangladesh essentially did exactly the same as was just described in Hyderabad. I'll
just add to this, Neil, that in the Work Free project, what we call Plus or Magic, was facilitated community mobilizing. So we had lots of Plus meetings, which we will go into the details when we talk about it. And what did we do with the 10 people, 10 transgender persons we had a monthly care workshops with them where we co-created space for care conversations, and also they go into reflecting about their own lives. In Madhya Pradesh, the plus part was that the whole thing was initiated by the trade union. So union continued its work of hand-holding and doing what it was already doing. So it was nothing new that we introduced. Yeah.
So just in terms of background, I'm sure this is in no way new for you folks, and you will face many of the same problems as plague where we come from and where we work. But anti-poverty policy in India, in South Asia, where I come from as well, and the kind of international development architecture's attempts to respond are characterized by two failings, basically. On the one hand, they do nothing. They're just like straight up neglect. People are poor, they're left to get on with it. There is no support. And this is, of course, particularly impactful when various forms of intersecting structural exclusions and dominations have confounding impacts upon the lives of, in our case, low-caste, marginalized folks. But on the other hand, when folks do try to help, and of course the international development architecture is basically set up, at least with the self-designated mission of helping, they do it really, really badly. Very typically, this involves someone coming from outside with an idea of how life should be and telling poor folk, this is how you change your lives and this is how shit will get better for you. And there's an enormous body of literature and an enormous body of work that shows how damaging this is, basically. At minimum, it makes things worse. If you're lucky, basically nothing else will change. And so the idea, certainly behind the pilot that is just wrapping up in Hyderabad and its sister in Bangladesh, was basically to turn these twin failings on their head. What would happen if we rolled out the counterfactual? In other words, respond to the material deprivation that is poverty by giving people the money that they need to pursue whatever their life goals might be, and organizing solidarity. Don't come with an idea of like, this is how we fix your stuff. Stand together and collaboratively using ultimately participatory forms of action research, work out together what we do, if anything, which may or may not emerge. And so, yeah, just to make that clear, that the twin logic basically was to turn these sort of structural failings of policy making on their head. I love this quote, so I'm just going to leave it up there for people to read it. But this underpins, if you like, the logic of the programs. Actually, one thing going back. Does the red thing go back? Yeah. This book, if folks haven't read this book, you might not have. It's by an English author called Hilary Cottam. It's called Radical Help. I literally cannot recommend it enough. And it's all about relationality and working together through relationships to create bottom-up solutions to people's problems. And that's his book up there. All right, so, the reason we're up here, and we will not go into the detail that we will go into after lunch, there's these two sort of core differences that we think in terms of how, like, the design elements of these programs relative to what commonly happens. Hey, do you want to talk about the universality piece first?
Yeah, I think even in Madhya Pradesh, when we selected villages, everybody in the village gets money. So the boundary is the physical boundary of the village, and then administratively also there's a boundary. So everybody, rich and the poor farmers, everybody got the money. And in urban areas, we were a little anxious how to draw this boundary, but it seems that there is an invisible boundary of every neighborhood, and we could easily do that. So when people said, everybody got it, whether they were urban waste collectors or they were domestic workers or anybody, we didn't even check that. It's possible that in some neighborhood which we selected, only 50% are urban waste collectors. The rest are doing various other things, but that doesn't matter at all. So the people came to us and said that, okay, this is a nice thing you're giving us the opportunity to participate in this program. My children are there in the next neighborhood. Can you give them also? So those were the, but definitely not. So it was very, very clearly the boundary. So that universality, that's how we implemented. In the case of the transgender, we had money only for 10 people. How do you do it? So we asked people to apply, self-select themselves, and declare that I'm a transgender person, so I will participate in this program. So we had about 60 applications from the city of Hyderabad, and then we did a public lottery, and 10 people were selected through that public lottery. And it so happened that one of them was a chief medical officer in a big government hospital. So everybody started saying that, why should she get the money? Aren't there more poor people? I said, we never said poor transgender persons. We said transgender persons who self-select themselves. So it's a different story. When we get a chance, I'll tell you how in the course of 1 year care workshops, what actually happened. So, yeah, it's possible to, yeah.
Yeah, just to add one thing. Look, the reason we're laboring this point is because obviously you folks know this is very much the kind of norm when it comes to pilot design. Typically, we're working with a randomized control trial. People are randomly selected from across different communities. And there's great value, obviously, to this kind of study design. But what you lose, we think, in a design of that nature is the kind of emergent magic community power that can develop as a result of everybody in a given space participating. And our play basically was, you know, our hypothesis is more that is transformative will be likely to be borne out by our results if we're working with an entire community. And indeed, that is ultimately what proved to be the case. So I guess the sort of pitch here for you folk, for the guaranteed income community globally, more broadly, is let's think more in the directions of community and saturation studies and perhaps a little less in the sort of individuating randomized control trial studies, which are nonetheless supremely valuable, but lack this potentially emergent element, which ties into the piece about organizing and the add-on of a second design element, which again is very commonly missing in basic income pilot designs. Would you like to?
Yeah, that's not just cash is very, very important, and the relational work is extremely important. I'm just coming from Latin American Basic Income Congress. There was a pilot in Peru. They were talking amongst the indigenous population. They were actually talking about, don't call it plus. Actually, if it all plus, that is the primary thing, and cash is the secondary part, because the relationality and then the relating to the community. So we felt, in our Work Free project, we felt so happy when, in summary, when people told us, you came to us as strangers, but now you became our relatives. So when you're coming, we feel so happy. So I think the relational work in the basic income pilot space, I think is extremely important. I think that all the experience of Work Free and Transgender project that we have done, it's so enriching. That relational part is really becoming primary. And the union part is, yeah, so in the process of this kind of community mobilizing, we are not mobilizing, but they are mobilizing themselves, and a union emerged because conversations led to discussing about this. In this city, we are making a big contribution to keep it clean. And that is not recognized. So, that's how the union got formed. And then it's called HYGCC, Hyderabad Waste Collectors Collective. And then we realized that there is an All India Waste Collectors Federation, and we got affiliated. And HYGCC has now become a national player in terms of lobbying with the government. So, we didn't plan to have a union, but it just, as Neil was talking about, that this emergent thing is so powerful and so important, and it humbles us, and we better be humble.
So we're just going to play like a 2-minute preview talking about the formation of this union, which is one of the major pieces to emerge from this project. We're making a film called Unconditional. Simon, our filmmaker, who is unbelievably talented at his craft, is over there. Say hi, Sai, don't be shy. Yeah, I guess simply to emphasize once more that it isn't just what we're positing is not just that the power of cash is enhanced when you add organizing to it, and organizing and its power is enhanced when you add cash to it. It's the uniting principle of unconditionality that travels across both of those pieces that is really important and empowering and dignifying.
The people who collect the waste, they come from a socially extremely depressed groups. Now, in this process of collectivization, in this process of dialogue, in this process of meeting one another, sharing of problems and sharing of needs, people begin to realize, yeah, this work is important, because it is such an important component of keeping the city clean. But when they form a collective, come together, then find that it is a common experience. And if it is a common experience, then common answers need to be found, common demands need to be formulated. And this is precisely what is happening. And in this process, I think we are already seeing that exploitative nature of this work and the workers is being gradually transformed.
అలా మీటింగ్ వల్ల అయితే కొన్ని తెలుసుకున్నాం, ఎవరితో మనం ఎట్లా ఉండాలి, ఏం కథ, ఏం మాట్లాడాలి, ఎక్కడికి వెళ్తే ఏ పనులు అయితే ఎవరితో ఎట్లా మాట్లాడాలి, ఎవరితో అప్పుడు భయపడండి, అమ్మ వాళ్ళు వస్తారు వాళ్ళతో ఏమంటారు ఏమో, ఎట్లా మాట్లాడాలి ఏమో అని కానీ భయం ఉండేది. ఎందుకు భయపడాలి, మన గురించి మనం అడగడానికి ఎందుకు భయపడాలి, అనే దాని గురించి ఒక ధైర్యం చేసుకొని అందరితో లీడర్తో కూడా మనం మాట్లాడతాం. అవును, రోడ్ వేయలేదు, మీరు వెళ్ళి చెప్తారా, ఇప్పుడు మేమే వెళ్ళాలా అనేసి మేము కూడా డైరెక్ట్ మాట్లాడిస్తాం వాళ్ళకి. ఇంతకుముందుకు ఒకసారి మీటింగ్ పెట్టుకున్నప్పుడు చెప్పినాం, ఏంది చెత్తలు గౌరవించాలి, చెత్త బండికి వచ్చేసి కనీసం 1 yearకి ఒకసారైనా ఒక 20,000 25,000 ఇస్తే మా బండ్ల రిపేర్లు కానీ మేము పెట్టుకుంటాం. ఇంకొకటి వచ్చేసి మాకు కూడా కొన్ని అది ఏమన్నారు, అది ఈఎఫ్ఐ ఈసీఐ కార్డు ఉంటుంది, హెల్త్ కార్డు, అది కూడా ఇవ్వాలని చెప్పేసి డిమాండ్ చేస్తున్నాం సార్. దాంట్లో రాసుకున్నాం కూడా, పేపర్ ఉంది, ఆ పేపర్ కూడా కొంచెం గవర్నమెంట్ చూసి ఏమైనా మాలాంటి వారు కూడా కొంచెం చూస్తే బెస్ట్ అనుకుంటున్నాం.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Final piece, yeah, that is us. You will find us in the bar later, unquestionably, but simply to say two sort of final pieces. One is we are, I think, back here sharing more fully the research design and the results at 2. So this is a pitch to both come and talk to us about that and drink some beer with us later. And secondly, so long as we do a hopefully decent enough job, then we will hopefully be back next year with the completed version of this documentary. So that's it. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.